In this interview, I'm going to be talking to Dr. Christine Shearer, who's the Program Director for Coal at Global Energy Monitor. And they've just released a report about coal plant planning and development in the 2020s. Some very, very interesting data and analysis around what's happening in China and the rest of Asia. So welcome to the interview, Christine.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, I'm hoping that you can shed some light on a question that I get all the time from readers, and that is, with respect to China, on the one hand, it has record renewables capacity additions every year. It seems to be committed very heavily to renewables. It just came out not too long ago with a pledge for carbon neutrality by 2060. And yet it keeps adding record amounts or very large amounts of coal plant capacity. How do we square those things?
Yeah, so it's absolutely true that China is adding a lot of renewable power capacity, solar and wind. It added a record amount in 2020. But it's also true that it's adding a lot of coal power. And the country really built a lot of coal power, was central to its economic development, and it has a lot of market incentives in place to build coal power. So guaranteed operating hours, low interest loans for these projects, and provinces that are really eager to grow their economies and to meet economic targets. And all those incentives, they've done some reforms, but they're not entirely gone. So you are seeing provinces still use coal plants as a form of economic growth. And so what you have is a country that's pursuing both solar and wind power and also a lot of coal power.
Now, my understanding is, the common perception is that China is this very hierarchical, centrally planned economy. But my understanding is that the provinces actually wield a lot of clout in turn, around power generation and distribution. And that's where some of the resistance to change resides, is down in the provincial government level.
Yeah, and actually in late 2014, the central government gave permitting authority for coal plants to the provinces. And so that's where you're seeing a lot of this activity for new coal plants is at the province level. That's where these new coal plants are being permitted, particularly in provinces that have a lot of coal mining capacity or heavy industry, because it's a way to support these other industries as well.
Now, when we say that China is building a lot of coal, last year globally, there was 50.3 gigawatts of capacity built, coal plants, and 38.4 gigawatts of that was in China for 76%, just so viewers understand the proportions, I guess. Now, outside of China, it's a different story. And their 11.9 gigawatts was commissioned, but a lot of that is the pipeline is collapsing in Asia, Bangladesh, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and so on, are all cutting back in a big way.
Yeah, so for context, if 38 gigawatts was commissioned in China, the runner-up is India with 2 gigawatts. So that shows, the gap between these countries that are often thought about as similar in terms of their coal plants, but they've just really been diverging. And so South and Southeast Asia, these different countries were thought about as the next big hotspots for coal power growth after China, but for various reasons, public opposition because of the pollution, a lot of financial institutions have been rolling back their coal plant financing, either because they recognize it as a bad investment or because of public pressure or both, and because of various climate reforms and climate activism, that a lot of countries are starting to roll back their plans for future coal plants in their energy plans. And so we're getting to the point where governments are saying we're not going to permit any more coal plants, or we're not going to build anything beyond what's already under construction. And so what's that saying is, the door is closing for coal in a lot of these countries.
Yeah, you had a very interesting comment, which was, we are very likely seeing the last coal plants and planning throughout most of the world. And so it would seem like China is the big outlier here. If somehow, international pressure or internal pressure within China can be brought to bear, some significant progress on phasing out coal might begin.
Yeah, so if you're to look at what began construction last year, most of it was in China, or it was in countries where the coal plant is being financed by China. So if the government were to say, you know what, we're not going to finance any more coal, I mean, the industry would just collapse.
Interesting. And let's talk about retirements, because the US and the European Union both retired a significant capacity in 2020.
Yeah, so in the US, actually more coal power capacity, so more coal plants was retired under President Trump than it was under Obama's second term. So that shows that the momentum's really against coal in the US, that it just can't compete against alternatives, because even when it had a pro-coal administration, you still saw record retirements. And in the EU, they've introduced a carbon price. And so that's made coal power more expensive against alternatives, because it has to internalize some of its external costs, the climate pollution. And so you've seen a radical decline in coal use throughout much of the EU. And in the UK and Spain, it's almost getting near zero levels. But I do want to emphasize that the retirements that we are seeing in the US and the EU are not nearly fast enough for what's needed to meet the Paris Climate Agreement.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask you to look ahead to 2030. And can you give us an idea of what you would expect we're going to see in terms of coal plant development and coal plant retirement?
My guess is that by 2030, you're not going to be seeing many more coal proposals, even in China. I think by then, they plan to peak CO2 emissions before 2030. But I think what we will see is a struggle to retire what is already operating, and that's going to be a struggle.
Christine, thank you very much for this. Really appreciate the insights.
Thank you.